Finance for a Fascist America. Now, don't scroll away, especially if you're one of those people who's just unengaged in politics or sitting on the fence. We do live in a fascist era now. There's just no denying it. The stock market is going to get weird, asset values are going to get weird, and the companies most connected to the levers of power now are completely in the hands of a few billionaire oligarchs who are going to profit the most. And here is where a huge investment opportunity is going to lie. The state will invest heavily in law enforcement, private prison contractors, and surveillance technologies. So let's think about this. What are the characteristics of a fascist regime? Number one, powerful and continuing nationalism. Check. Number two, disdain for human rights. Check. Because of fear of the people, and by that I mean you, the supporters of fascist regimes can easily be persuaded that human rights can be ignored because of some imaginary or even real extraordinary need. Fascist bootlickers tend to look the other way or even approve of torture, summary executions, assassinations, and unjust incarcerations of anyone that looks like the enemy. The problem is the definition of enemy will evolve until it includes you. Number three, identification of scapegoats as a unifying cause. Today, it's illegal immigrants. Tomorrow, it will be some other racial, ethnic, or religious minority. Number four, supremacy of the military. Check. Even when there are widespread domestic problems, the military has a huge budget and the domestic agenda is ignored. Real problems are being ignored. We spend almost $1 trillion a year on our military. And in the last month alone, we've threatened to annex Greenland, Canada, the Panama Canal, to invade Mexico and occupy Gaza. Number five, rampant sexism. Absolutely check. We have a rapist in the White House. Number six, controlled mass media. Absolutely check. Unlike in the past, methods that were used to censor the newsfeed that you got are no longer being used. It's all done by algorithms, of course, because most people get their news online. Most of what is fed to you is controlled by billionaire oligarchs. Your algorithm is designed to feed you propaganda that makes you feel rage. Fascist supporters are not only incapable of distinguishing fact from fiction, they have no desire to because it serves their purposes. Elon Musk is not your friend. He does not believe in free speech and pushes delusional persecution fantasies to his bootlicking sycophants. Mark Zuckerberg also absolutely serves the state and their propaganda. TikTok is entirely compromised and will likely be purchased by the new sovereign wealth fund to serve as a propaganda arm of the state. The entire TikTok ban movement was a campaign to seize control of a very effective propaganda tool to serve the needs of the fascist state that we now live in. Number seven, obsession with national security. Check. Once again, this is where a large investment opportunity is going to lie. The state is going to invest heavily into law enforcement, private prison contractors, and surveillance technologies. Number eight, religion and government are intertwined. So I don't think there's any question at all about this fact. Religious rhetoric is just entirely normal from our government leaders today, even when the actions of the government are directly against what that religion stands for. If you are a Christian and you think you are safe from this movement, you are probably wrong. At some point, you won't be the right kind of Christian, and there won't be anyone left to fight for you. Number nine, corporate power is protected. Absolutely check. The oligarchy of this fascist nation are the ones who put the current leaders into power. They bought this country, creating a mutually beneficial power structure and unaccountable elites at the expense of the people. Number 10, and possibly most importantly, labor power is suppressed. So absolutely check. Virtually every red state right now has anti-union legislation that they are proposing. They are putting through Congress or debating. Because the power of organized labor is the only real threat to a fascist government. You don't own factories or tech companies or any of the other means of production. The power of organized labor, the threat of general strike, and the ballot box are your only ways short of violence to fight back against the oppression of the oligarchy. Labor unions are more important now than they have ever been because the power of white-collared workers, your potential allies, is about to be dramatically reduced. AI is already eliminating thousands of high-paying white-collar jobs. A white-collar apocalypse is coming. You need each other. This beef between blue-collar workers and white-collar workers is entirely manufactured by the ruling class to keep you divided, to keep the power of organized labor suppressed, and to protect their interests. When auto workers go on strike for better pay and benefits, white-collar workers should be supporting them full stop. We are all working class. We are not temporarily inconvenienced billionaires. The oligarchs and their minions are working hard right now to eliminate entirely or to severely suppress your ability just to demand the bare minimum. Number 11, disdain for intellectuals and the arts. Absolutely check. Fascists are openly hostile to higher education and academia. The blue-collar beef with college graduates is absolutely emblematic of how brainwashed our population is. This is manufactured by the people who want to keep you divided. Number 12, obsession with crime and punishment. Also check. Even though we're in an era where crime rates have never really been lower, we are still living in a dystopian police techno state. Under fascist regimes, the police are given almost limitless power to enforce new security mandates in the name of some national emergency, and those have already been implemented. The people will overlook police abuses or even forego civil liberties in the name of patriotism. If you don't support it, you're just not a patriot. So this is something scary that people didn't really pay that much attention to in the right way. It made national news, but people didn't really understand the implications here. Last year, after the election, tens of thousands of black people were sent vile text messages across 10 states. Now, like I said, this did make national news, but what few people consider are the implications. Whoever sent these texts knew the names and phone numbers of these people, and they knew that they were all black. Everyone's data security and privacy has already been compromised. Rampant cronyism and corruption check, and once again, this is where a giant investment opportunity is going to lie. Fascist regimes are always governed by groups of allies and associates who appoint each other to government positions and use governmental power and authority to protect their friends from accountability for crimes or to commit crimes against the people to enrich themselves or to acquire power. Number 14, fraudulent elections check. I wish I could say that this election was a complete sham. I'm not sure that it was. 49 million Americans did choose this. This election was manipulated by smear campaigns, algorithms favoring one party over the other, the use of legislation to suppress voting numbers and the use of legislation to make it more difficult to vote, and the manipulation of social media. So now that we understand that the United States nails all 14 of the characteristics of fascism, how do we survive financially? For various reasons that I'll get into in another video, I believe that the current administration will likely engineer a recession by suppressing asset values and consumer demand. This will mostly be done by shifting the tax burden from the wealthy to the working class. A tariff, after all, is a consumption tax, and a consumption tax always disproportionately affects the working class. Anyone who tells you differently is a moron. The country voted to shift the tax burden from the wealthy to the working class. I estimate that by getting rid of the federal income tax in favor of tariffs, that you will absolutely pay more in taxes if you earn less than $100,000 per year. The federal income tax burden on a single person with no children who makes $100,000 is $13,841. You may be in the 22% tax bracket, but because of progressive taxation, your effective rate is 13.84%. That effective tax rate, if you are married with 2 children, drops to $4,032 with the application of deductions and credits, meaning working class families will see the largest tax raise. This is what you voted for. Working class families will go from paying 4% of their income in federal taxes to 25 to 35% taxes buried in the price of goods they purchase. Tariffs of 25 to 35% on goods made outside of the United States will be passed to the consumer. Importers aren't going to share that burden with you. Prices will rise, and producers of domestic products will also raise their prices simply because they can, until demand for their product falters on price concerns. That 25 to 35% tariff on imported goods will drive some manufacturing in the U.S. for high-value items, but if you walk into a Walmart, virtually everything that you see is still going to be manufactured overseas because that 25 to 35% tariff will not be enough to overcome manufacturing cost advantages for those kinds of items. Inflation pressures will come back. interest rates will stay high, and credit will continue to be expensive. Consumer demand will be impacted in ways that are not predictable. This is why that I think over the next 5 years or so, any investment focused on consumer discretionary spending has higher risks than it has had over the past few years. My investment portfolio is going to be focused on non-discretionary spending. Companies that deal with debt restructuring will do well in the long term, but they're going to have some near-term volatility that creates buying opportunities. Companies that serve the national security state will do well. In other words, investing in the tools that will be used to oppress people will probably perform well. The regime is obsessed with law and order and perceived national security threats. And I think that this sentiment will grow to include many groups of people, including a lot of American citizens. These 6 companies on my list will absolutely profit from a regime happy to curb stomp your rights. The last company on this list is also uniquely positioned to profit from this regime. Not only do they have a great product, but its political ties place it in a position to win contracts without any pretense of competitive bidding. The first company on my list is Axon, but not for reasons that you think. Body cams are cool and all, but the real future of Axon is Axon AI, Axon Fusus, and Evidence.com, which will likely start to become greater contributors to company profits as the political situation in the US evolves. Number 2, Khaki International, trading under the symbol CACI, does a lot of things in the technology space, but its ties to the national security state will be tapped, particularly their intelligence survey and reconnaissance services, as well as their anti-drone technologies. They do a lot more than that, but I expect these technologies to lead the charge. Number 3, Leidos, trading under the symbol LDOS. Leidos is a defense service provider spun out of SAIC some years ago and concentrated in intelligence command and control platforms and data analytics. Their expertise overlaps with Khaki, and I expect them to prosper as well. Number 4, CoreCivic, trading under the symbol CXW, is a private prison company, the very existence of which I find to be repulsive, but they should prosper in this environment for obvious reasons. The prison population is going to grow. Number 5, the Geo Group. Geo is a company that specializes in owning, leasing, and management of secure facilities. In other words, it's also a private prison company. And the last company on my list, number 6, Palantir. Palantir is probably the most important company on this list and may be one of the most important companies on the stock market over the next 5 years or so. Palantir is an AI company that has a lot of commercial uses, but at its core, its software platforms assist in intelligence and counterintelligence operations. My initial coverage of this stock years ago was lukewarm, and I underestimated their potential growth in the government sector. I predicted growth in line with expectations for a defense contractor, and they have outperformed my predictions. Because they do have a great product, and because of their political connections, there are now no restraints on how much money they can make. All of this is because of the assistant to the assistant president, J.D. Vance. The U.S. is going to become increasingly obsessed with real or perceived threats to national security, and Palantir will happily step in to provide the regime security blanket. J.D. Vance is important in this because J.D. Vance does not exist. He is a character created by the co-founder of Palantir, Peter Thiel, a foreign billionaire, friend and former business partner of Elon Musk. J.D. Vance is not even his name. He's changed it several times. Peter Thiel created the J.D. Vance character, got his book written and published, got a movie deal for that book, and bought him a Senate seat in Ohio. J.D. Vance only served 2 short years as a senator before being named vice president, and now sits one greasy McDonald's hamburger away from the presidency. Palantir is going to get a lot of government contracts. They will happily monitor and report on the activities of American citizens, all in the name of national security. Billions of dollars in contracts will be awarded without even the pretense of fairness or competitive bidding, probably using some sort of emergency declaration, because the J.D. Vance character is, in fact, a Peter Thiel plant. I predict that based on market cap, political connections, that Palantir is probably going to be the single largest beneficiary of a fascist America. Thank you very much, guys, and have a nice day.